On November 17th, 1558, Mary I, Queen of England, died and was succeeded by her younger half-sister, Elizabeth I. 440 years later, the film Elizabeth, depicting the early stages of her rule over England, was released. The film was well received and launched Cate Blanchett's international fame, but it still squeezed around 14 years of history into a 2-hour movie, sacrificing some of the facts. But how much? How accurate is Elizabeth? The film opens on the tail end of Mary's reign, with her childless and close to death. She really did have a false pregnancy towards the end, two in fact, but the order of events between her and Elizabeth are not correct. Elizabeth was not imprisoned in the Tower when Mary discovered that she was not pregnant. In fact, she was asked to return to be with the Queen when she was expected to give birth. And although not explicitly stated in the film, Mary officially recognized Elizabeth as her successor over a week before she died, and Elizabeth had begun preparing to become queen a month before even that. Also, in the early scenes of the movie, we are introduced to the romance between Elizabeth and Robert Dudley, which is based on a true romance, although maybe not as open as it is depicted in the film. However, later, William Cecil reveals to Elizabeth that Robert is already married, which comes as a revelation to her. Elizabeth was totally aware of his marriage, and when his wife became ill in 1559, after Elizabeth's ascension to the throne, she still entertained the idea of marrying him, as did Robert, apparently, as many people believe he caused his own wife's death in order to clear a path for himself and the Queen. And also introduced early on is the aforementioned William Cecil, who would be one of Elizabeth's closest advisors for almost all her life. However, the film shows him as an old man compared to Elizabeth, when he was really only 13 years older than her. And also, unlike in the film, he was not dismissed by the Queen, but remained at her side until his death. After she is crowned queen, Frances Walsingham is hired to be her bodyguard and later becomes her advisor. The real Walsingham was a returning Protestant exile at the beginning of Elizabeth's reign, but he was only a member of Parliament and a political ally, but would not take on more important roles until later into her rule. After an unsuccessful military action in Scotland against the French, she agrees to consider a marriage to Henry, Duke of Anjou, and meets with him in England, only to reject him after his rude behavior and the discovery that he is a crossdresser. While she did briefly consider a marriage to Henry, she never met him in person, and he was also never accused of crossdressing. Elizabeth did seriously consider his younger brother Francis, but that was almost 20 years later. After a failed assassination attempt against Elizabeth, Walsingham travels to Scotland and assassinates Mary of Guise, which is totally fabricated for the film. Mary died of natural causes. Shortly after, Walsingham begins tracking down a group of conspirators who were planning on deposing Elizabeth and promoting the Duke of Norfolk to the throne. The conspirators are all either killed or captured and then put to death, except for Robert Dudley, whom she allows to live. The plot to put Thomas Howard, the Duke of Norfolk, on the throne is missing a few of the main conspirators, and is also depicted as having happened early in Elizabeth's reign, when it actually did not occur until 12 years after her coronation. Furthermore, Robert Dudley was not involved in any plots against the Queen. As previously stated, he remained loyal to her even after the end of their romantic relationship and until his death. Following these events, Elizabeth has herself remade into the image of the Virgin Mary, and declares herself married to England. This ending is somewhat misleading, as Elizabeth would consider marriage for most of her life, even though in hindsight we know she would never marry. And as for a small detail that the film made special interest of, she did not begin using lead paint to whiten her skin until after surviving a smallpox attack, and only then just to cover the scars. That was Elizabeth. We obviously didn't cover everything. We could have probably spent over an hour on the coronation scene alone if we wanted to, but we think we got the important points. But as always, tell us what you think. In the comments below, let us know what we could have added or taken out. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and subscribe for new videos every week. Thanks for watching.